Hi everyone, this is Mani and welcome back to SK Today we are going to learn one of the most important concept in Kubernetes, which is init containers. But before jumping directly into the technical part, let's understand with a simple story, an analogy that will help you remember this concept forever. Let's go back to the early days, the time of primitive man. This early human wanted to make fire. So, what does he do? He starts by collecting some dried leaves, dry grass, and a few small twigs because these materials catch fire easily. Once he gathered all these dried materials, he takes two stones and strikes them together. These stones produce sparks. Now he carefully drops these sparks onto the pile of dried leaves. He then blows air slowly to give oxygen, and soon the leaves starts to smoke and burn. Finally, the man can see the fire. Once the fire is ready, he calls his family. They use this fire to cook meat, and once it's cooked, they enjoy the food together. Now let's see how this analogy is related to init containers in Kubernetes. We will see in just few minutes. Let's come to Kubernetes world. In Kubernetes, a pod can have one or more containers inside it. Let's take an example. One container is called an init container and the other container is called main application container. Both containers needs a place to share files between them, right? So we create something called shared volume. It's like a common folder that both containers can use. Do you know which container starts first? Yes, the init container will start first. The init container's job is to do some setup work before the main app starts. For example, it can download a file, let's say an index.html file, and save it or writes it in the shared volume. Now the main container starts. It doesn't need to download the file again. It can simply read the index.html file from the shared volume and display it in the application. So what's the benefit here? The init container reduces the load on the main container instead of making the main application do everything like downloading the files. The init container handles it first, then main app just uses what's ready in the shared volume. So, how this primitive man analogy is related to init containers in Kubernetes? Think of it like this. How the primitive man's preparation started like with collecting dried leaves, grass, twigs, and creating the sparks with the stone is like the init container's job. It sets up the environment and gets everything ready. And the main fire that finally burns and cooks the food. Similarly, that's like your main application container doing its actual work where your application is running. Before I proceed to next steps, as we are talking about fire analogy, and tomorrow is Diwali, I want to wish you a very happy Diwali and have a colorful lights with joy and sweets. Now again, let's come to the some of the use cases. The first one is load and configuration of dependencies. Init containers can load and configure dependencies needed by the main application container before it starts running. And also, it will be very useful for accessing secrets and any environment setup. Let's also understand how the manifest file looks like. By seeing this manifest file, are you thinking it's hard? Nope, it's very simple. Let's decode together. Here we have taken kind as pod because pod contains one or more containers, and I given the name for pod as sksecops-init-demo. If you observe under spec section, there are two subsections. One is for init container and the other is for main container. and we have the volume work dir and type empty dir creates a temporary empty folder when the pod starts. It is shared between the both containers, which is init and the main container. Data init lasts only until the pod is running. According to Kubernetes, here first volume will be created, then init container will start, and then main container starts. In the init container section, we are using the busybox image, which is a small Linux image. It runs the command wget to download a web page index.html from InfoCern website into the shared volume folder /workdir. The path /workdir does not exist in busybox by default, but Kubernetes automatically creates it when mounting the shared volume. Once the init container successfully completes the download, the index.html file is now stored inside the workdir volume. Now the main container starts. It uses the Nginx image, which is a web server. It mounts the same shared volume workdir at slash user slash share slash nginx slash html, which is nginx default folder for serving web pages. That's all for this video. I hope you have enjoyed the video. If you really like this video, please click on the like button, and if you are watching for the first time, subscribe to my YouTube channel and don't forget to share with your friends. Thank you.